Today's event. We are live streaming here from Sunshine Coast in Australia. Do us a favor, type in exactly where you're watching us from around the world. We are live streaming right now here in the Zoom room, but we're also live streaming with a very loud motorbike going past on YouTube as well. If you hate those loud motorbikes, type in "I hate them" in the chat, because I do, because these people go past every day with this stupid noise, which is crazy. Anyway, let's get into it. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to put on a quick timer for anybody who is not on the event that's in your group. Get them on this event as quick as you can, and we'll get started shortly. Just realized I was talking to myself on mute. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you've logged in, we just want to say that if you speak another language, we do have closed captions. So we're just going to play that now for anyone who speaks a different language, and then we'll get started.
Por favor, vaya a la parte inferior de la pantalla en Zoom o YouTube y haga clic en subtítulos para leer en español.
Kérlek, menjünk képernyő aljára, a Zoomon vagy a YouTube-on, a Closed Caption részre, és ott el tudod olvasni magyarul a feliratot.
Silakan klik di layar bawah pada Zoom atau YouTube dan klik caption untuk membaca dalam bahasa Indonesia.
Pour les sous-titres en français, veuillez cliquer au bas de votre écran Zoom ou YouTube sur CC ou Closed Captions.
Zoom または YouTube の画面の下部に移動し、字幕をクリックして日本語で読んでください。
請到屏幕底部點閱隱藏字幕以閱讀中文.
Παρακαλώ πηγαίνετε στο κάτω μέρος της οθόνης, στο Zoom ή στο YouTube και κάντε κλικ στους υπότιτλους για να τα διαβάσετε στα ελληνικά.
請到屏幕底部點擊隱藏字幕以閱讀中文.
אנא עברו לתחתית המסך בזום וביוטיוב ולחצו על תרגום לכתוביות בעברית.
Proszę zejść na dół ekranu na Zoomie lub YouTubie i kliknąć napisy, żeby przeczytać po polsku.
Beautiful. So welcome online, ladies and gentlemen, to Members Night. Today in Australia is the 20th of February. It'll be the 19th of February in the Northern Hemisphere. We're always back to the future here in Australia, ahead of you guys. Do me a favour, don't be shy. Neumi members, if you're going to be a networker, and it doesn't matter whether you're coming from a wellness perspective or a business perspective, a networker is a networker is a networker is a networker. And if you are shy and you're too shy to type where you're from, how on earth are you going to network yourself? So do us a favor, every single person, type in the chat if you're on social media, type in the chat if you're on YouTube, type in the chat if you're here, where are you watching us from? Because that encouragement of interaction during all our live events actually drives the algorithms to make sure that all your members are going to see the event. So it's in your interest to type it in every single time, guys. So today you've got me, and then you've got Steve Scott towards the end. Phoebe's going to keep letting people in the room as we go. And we've got people on right now, for example, from Indonesia. We have New Zealand. We have Arizona, Western Australia. We have sorry, that's someone talking to someone. We have Canada. We have Indonesia again, Florida. Yes, Panama. Craters of the Moon, welcome from Craters of the Moon. We've got Ontario, Canada. Yep, you're watching on Neumi TV. Yes, you are. Ontario, Jamaica. Woohoo, wow. And Florida, Surabaya, etc., etc. Beautiful. So today, guys, I've got five things. A blunt pencil remembers more than the sharpest mind. So there are 5 things we're going to cover off. And the first couple are actually promotions from the company. They want me to cover off and just remind you about a few things before we get into the topic today. And by the way, the topic today was voted by the Diamonds. So you're getting exactly what our finger on the pulse, what the Diamonds want to hear. But before we kick off, I want to show you something. Has anyone seen this? If you haven't, woohoo! That's the Business for Home website. Business for Home is probably the most credible website in the industry, and it shows that Neumi's growth is a beautiful graph. 2 million, that was like 90 days of business, to be honest, guys, in the first year, and then 13 million the next year, and then 25 million, then 36 million. But the big thing to note here, which I noticed even one of my diamonds wasn't aware the other day, is if you look on the screen, and I'm going to try and highlight it for you right here, see how it says 53%? That means 53 cents in the dollar. Now, if you go look at any other company, and someone was comparing a patch company the other day, they were down at 38 cents in a dollar. Poor payments. Another company, which is the granddaddy of the industry, someone was talking about 23% payout. No one's paying anywhere near what Neumi is. So that's something to be really proud of. And if you ever have anyone who's looking, toying up different opportunities, just bring it up, show them on Business for Home. You can click on the company name. It shows them exactly what the payout figures are, what the growth is. And there was one out there that's, I've noticed a few people that I've known are actually involved in a patch company. And great, but the volume's starting to tank, right? What's that tell you? So it's not necessarily sustainable in the long term. And again, I'm not targeting any companies in a negative way. What do they say? If you throw mud, you lose ground. But I like FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So if it's tanking, why would you want to get on that bus when it's going down? And again, they can show you all the payments they pay, and we categorically pay more than everybody. So the company wanted me to cover off a few things, and this is one of them. We've extended through February, as you know, the rank promotion. So if you want a matching check, now's the time to do that. But you've only got 8 days here in the Southern Hemisphere anyway, 8 days left until that's finished. So let's push to the end of the month. Now, the other thing they wanted me to cover as well is that Pay Quicker is the payment system. And if you've been with Neumi for quite a long time, you know that we've, gone through a few little hurdles to find out the best technology for different parts of the business. And I think we've come to the final point now. And the last little thing was to address the Pay Quicker, or address the payment system. And the payment system is now called Pay Quicker. So a couple of questions, and I'm going to read exactly what Fiona and I were talking about. We were on an Indonesian leadership call with all the leaders the other day, and they asked this question. So regarding the e-wallet questions, new members cannot use the e-wallet for their first order. They must enroll first, get some commissions, and then they quit after that. So that's number one. If you've set up the new wallet on Pay Quicker, commission payments will automatically default now to Pay Quicker moving forward. But what about if you've got commissions sitting in the old e-wallet? What do you want to do? Well, you can send an email to support asking them to suck it out of that one and put it into a new one, and you can start going. Now, I know if some of you have a bit of PSTD or PTSD, whatever it's called, from changing systems, let me just say this new payment system is phenomenal. It's so simple. It's so easy. It is brain dead, stupidly simple to set up and links, and it works in multiple languages around the world. So it's definitely worthwhile. Sometimes you've got to tweak a few things to be ready for the massive growth, and this one is set up beautifully for that. So that's the things the company wanted me to cover off, which is number one. Number two, today we're going to talk about 2 topics. So we put it out to the crowns, we put it out to the diamonds and said, what do you need to hear? What do we need to train on? What do people need to know? And 2 topics came up, actually 3, and the third one will be covered off next week, okay? But the 2 topics was, how do I motivate my team? And the other one was what's the best way to follow up? Okay, so write that down. So how do I motivate my team, and what's the best way to follow up? And then, of course, we're going to have Steve Scott on, and then I've got a final promotion after that. So Steve's on the way home right now, so it'll be perfect timing by the time I get to that point. So I'm going to be like a newsreader today, because guess what? I've got notes. I'm going to make sure that I cover everything off. So if I'm doing a bit of reading, just know that's going to make sure that I keep everything that I put in my brain, or got in my brain, to tip into yours, okay? So in simple terms, the best way to motivate your team, are you ready for it? There's only one way. Be out front doing what you want them to do, okay? Now, one of the biggest things that will inhibit your growth in your team is actually falling into management mode and trying to teach them what to do. Now, believe it or not, there are 2 distinct differences in this business as a leader. One is supporting your group, and the other one is driving the depth and growth of your business. Some people think, I'll set up my own Facebook group and I'll, update everybody in there, and we'll have our weekly calls through Neumi, and that's awesome. Well, that's supporting. That's not driving. Just so we're clear, that's supporting your group. So in order to inspire your group, you need to be out there doing things that you're asking them to do. Otherwise, you'll become an ineffective leader. And I'll share a quick story with you because I know he's not online because he quit after about 3 months. When we launched Neumi, I had a guy that came to me from Kangen Water, great company. And he was keen and wanted to get things going and fantastic. And we launched, and he was adamant that I had to be his sponsor. Totally okay with that. And he went out and he sponsored 3 people. And about a month later, he reached out to me, goes, it's just not working. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not working? He said, well, my 3 people are doing nothing. And I'm like, okay, so what are you doing? Well, I've got my 3 people. I'm like, oh, okay. You think that you get 3 and then you sit on your hands and tell them what to do. That's management mode. That's why you're ineffective. That's why they're not doing anything, because they haven't seen you do anything since you introduced your first 3 people. This is why we say to people, stay active as a leader, right? So one of the things you can do is to put them in an environment where they get exposed to positivity and infected. Just like, through the pandemic, they're like, oh, social distance, keep away from people. You want positive people to infect everybody who maybe doesn't have a lot of confidence or a lot of competence. So what we've done recently, and we've got one running in Australia, New Zealand, and Philippines, but we also have the Indonesian team running their own. And I will say this out loud, they started before all the rest of the world did, and they inspired me to make sure we started to do the same thing in some of those countries. I've put it out to some of the American downline teams saying, hey, why don't we run a 90-day run as well in the US, because it'd be a great thing to do. They could do it in Latin American, they could do it in different languages. So effectively what we're saying is in Neumi, there will be walkers, runners, and sleepers. Walkers, runners, and sleepers. So don't sleep with the sleepers. Feel free to walk with the walkers, but definitely run with the runners. So you need to separate those two. Now, you can turn a uninspired walker into a runner by keeping them around people who are doing more than they do and infecting them with positivity, okay? So that's what we've been doing in one of our calls, and there's some people, I'm looking at some faces right now. Now, having said that, it's interesting. What we don't do, and I'm telling you things, don't think I'm an expert, right? Yes, Neumi got to meet a crown in 12 months, but that was not, I said to my team the other day, I showed them a picture of it's just behind the scenes here, a picture of a bamboo plant. I said, don't judge yourself by others who are exploding like into big ranks like that in the first 12 months, because what you don't know is they've also got decades of experience that brought them to that point. You need to get that experience as well. So you're probably not going to accelerate as fast as others, but you can still accelerate fast, right? Don't compare yourself with anyone else. So I use the analogy of the bamboo plant, the Chinese bamboo plant. Did you know that it stays under the ground for about 5 years? You water it, you water it, water it, you go, that thing is dead. Walk away. And then guess what happens? 5 years, all of a sudden it pokes its head out of the ground, and then within a matter of months grows 90 feet into the air. That is you investing in yourself to become a better leader. So when we're talking about having a blitz or what have you, and we say, what sort of activity levels people would do, what we don't do is shame them by saying, oh, Mary's done 2 calls. Is that all? Oh, look at Buddy. Buddy's done 50, that would be demotivational. And I've done that in the past. Not proud to say it, but I've gone, come on, guys, be like Buddy. He's doing 50. So what we do is we do get them to report in their activity levels, because without activity, there is nothing we can teach. There is 0 personal development on this call, 0 personal development in listening to Steve Scott, 0 personal development in listening to any mentor, 0 personal development in any reading any book. It's the application of the principles when you're moving where a coach or a mentor can help you to grow as a leader. So we can only steer the rudder if the boat's moving. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I'm telling you all this stuff, but nothing's happening. That's why, because you have to put it in practice. That's why they say the home-based business network marketing industry is the best business school in the world, because you hear it from mentors, then you go apply it, then you grow as a person at the time. So what we're saying in our blitzes is, just so people don't get scared not to go into them, is that it's about looking in the mirror and saying, okay, how many calls did I do last week? 2. All right, this week I'm going to do 3. Next week I'm going to do 4. It's about personal best. It's not about comparing yourself with anybody else. Comparison to other people will demotivate you in some cases, right? But do have someone that you aspire to, right? You have to aspire to something. Who's doing something that you haven't done, that if you did it, it would make a difference to your day, yeah? So With that in mind, I will just point this out though, in terms of, because it's important to make sure your brain's in the right space. When we're talking about motivating a team and when we're talking about activity levels, what's realistic? Well, when I've launched businesses in the past, and when I launched, and I know when James Lewis was around on day one and they went diamond in 48 hours, was it 48 hours? Did I go diamond? Did I go double diamond in 2 weeks? Not really. We had a 90-day run up to the start date. But in that time, I reckon I approached maybe 200 people, right? I was just, anyone who had a pulse got approached about Neumi, right? And boom, we started with a bang. So when someone's launching their business, if, and I say if, inverted commas, if someone has influence and a big contact base, don't slow them down to going one contact a day. Why would you do that? Let's bring it down to lowest common denominator. Instead, organize for that individual to launch. And launch means let's organize a day at the end of the week. Let's get on the phone and get 50 calls, 100 calls done, and boom, let's do an event for them and blow the doors off it. And that's exactly what a lot of us did that have resulted in high ranks. Now, having said that, every single person in the industry you talk to will talk about doing 90-day runs. I did 3 90-day runs and then hit crown, right? So with that, the high end is someone who has confidence, influence, a big list, and that's not going to scare them to launch. But then there's other people who are a little bit more timid. And so we say statistically, 130-10 is a stat, which is proof in the industry. 100 names on average will result in maybe 30 people showing an interest, maybe 10 customers, maybe 10 members, maybe 20 customers. Who knows? It'll depend. Now, a broke university student won't get as good results as that. An established network marketer would kill those results and get much better. So would a medical practitioner because of the product. And an average in the middle is the 130-10. But as my beautiful friend Crossline, who was the first person to wish me a happy birthday last year because I was sitting with him at lunch in America, says, and that is Italo, Italo says, let's chunk it down. Let's make it so believable that an everyday person could know I could do this. So what's the task they get? Well, the task we position to them is a cycle, a Neumi cycle. What's a Neumi cycle? A Neumi cycle is 30 names. 10 calls today, 10 calls tomorrow, 10 calls the day after, and then follow up for the rest of the week. That's a cycle which can be done by a person working a full-time job on the side, right? But while we've been doing this blitz, I've noticed some people have been in the industry for a while and maybe have a worn-out, smelly list, right? And other people who are very timid and they're going, ooh, 10 calls. So we said to them in the blitz, that's okay. Let's do a tiny baby step. 5 calls today, 5 calls tomorrow, 5 calls the next day. That's 15. And then next week, we'll do 5, 5, 5. And guess what? You've done a cycle in 14 days. You're going to get results. Any activity is better than no activity. Then we found some people in the blitz. They are doing what I call nano steps. Right? And a nano step is I called one person this week, and that's fantastic and admirable if it's you pushing out of a comfort zone. But if you stay at that pace permanently, it's going to take you 100 years to hit 1 star, just being realistic and honest with you, right? But you have to have a target. What do they say? If you aim at nothing, you will hit that with amazing, spectacular accuracy. So you have to have something to shoot for, okay? And that's why I'm suggesting when you've got new people started, are they ready to launch with a big kabam, 100 names and go for it in the first week and let's have an explosive online launch? Or they're like, oh, I'm a bit shy. That's cool. Explain the 130-10, talk about a cycle, 30 names, right? And if they're super, super, super timid, then talk about baby steps beyond that, and then personal best, personal best, personal best. So that's how you motivate a team, getting them around other people. But you need to stay out front and you need to be doing what you're trying to teach, because if you don't, guess what you're going to do? Theory won't cut it. This is why, and I love every single corporate executive in this company, and I've loved some corporate executives in other companies, but that's why I say we can't have a corporate executive talk on this topic, because theory doesn't cut it. So they can talk about the what to do. The how to do has to come from a member, because otherwise it'd be like me sitting here saying, oh yeah, theoretically, I read a great book from Eric Worre that said, you should do this. And that's what happened in the previous company when Steve left. And that's why the CEO of that company killed it. But that's a whole other story. We won't go there. So I want to talk about the quadruple sort. Now, I heard from a great leader in the industry, something called the triple sort. And you want to write that down. I'm going to rebrand it the quadruple sort. Why? I've realized through Neumi in the last 3 years that the triple sort idea had some great, amazing content and amazing validity, but I've noticed a quadruple sort. So I'm going to rebrand it and call it the quadruple sort. What do I mean? Type in yes if you go to the gym. Anybody, you know, on social media, on YouTube, on here, type in yes if you go to the gym. Now, would you agree with me, if you're going to the gym, that there are many types of people at the gym? There are people who go and sign up to the gym and then turn up once every couple of weeks, and they're pretty much not getting any results. Then there are people who go to the gym and maybe go once a week and they're getting some results. And then there's people who go to the gym a few times a week getting better results. And then there's people who go to the gym 2 times a day. I've met them and I'm like, what is wrong with you? That's insane. But you should look at their physique. It's like, holy crap, you're an example of health and wellness because of your commitment. So who would also agree that January the 1st, everyone sets a goal, I'm going to the gym, and joins, and by March, maybe half of them are no longer going. Who would agree with that as well? Type in yes if you think so. So why would, if that's the case with a gym, why would that be any different in this industry? It amazes me that people turn around and go, oh, network marketing doesn't work because my friend got in that, did nothing, and didn't make $1 million. Well, my friend went to the gym once and he didn't turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger. So does the gym work? Absolutely, the gym works, right? Does the industry work? Absolutely, it works. Did the person work it? No. And it's embarrassing for them to say, I failed, rather than saying the industry failed. When you go to the gym, you can't hide. If you said the gym doesn't work, people would laugh in your face and say, you nutcase. If there's any healthy people out there, well, guess what? There's 38 million millionaires in this industry. 38 million millionaires. It works. If you don't work it, it doesn't work for you. If you work it, it works. So with that in mind, the quadruple sort is this, and it's inspiring when you understand it. The first sort is who's going to join. Okay. That doesn't mean they're going to build. So the first sort is who's going to join. Some of those people who join will have all the right intentions. They want to, you know, get their kids to travel the world and go see Disneyland. They want to pay off the mortgage. They want to leave their crappy job. And then they get 2 knockbacks because they approach 2 people. And then they go, yeah, look, I like my job, actually. I was only joking the other day. And, you know, I don't really need to see Disneyland. You know, it's not as important as I thought it was. But because they put their, like a little turtle, they put their head back into the shell. So that's the first sort. Just because they join your team doesn't mean they're going to build in the long run. And you just need to accept that. That's where this guy who started in the early days, unfortunately, was stuck in that paradigm. The second sort is who's going to build. Now, some people will go out there and they will build the business, and that's the ones you want to pour your time into. Some will walk, some will run, some will sleep. And you want to separate those so you can work at the right pace with everyone, at their pace, not your pace. And then the third one is who's going to lead. So who's going to join? First sort. Second one, who's going to build? Next one, who's going to lead? Because leading means logging onto all the events live, learning, opening yourself to a mentor and saying, tell me, what do I need to learn? You know, maybe you talk too much. You need to hear that from a mentor, right? So not having a mentor, you might be just doing what you're doing and never know that you're killing the business by talking too much. There's so many factors that can come into it. Now, the quadruple sort, the last one, the fourth sort, is something I've seen recently, and that is, and this is my opinion, and that is, as Aaron said to me one day, we need to make sure we focus on real leadership. So there's people who decided to be a leader, but then they're spreading themselves across 3 companies, 4 companies, 10 companies, and they become ineffective leaders. So the final sort is who is a laser-focused leader. And I would put them above all the other leaders that have multiple gigs going on at the same time any day, because there's something to be said about amazing targeted leadership and laser focus. Does that make sense? So the quadruple sort. So if you go back to what I said about this new guy that put in my first 3 people and no one's doing anything, I'm like, A, are you out there leading, doing what you're doing? And B, statistically, will all 3 people end up becoming leaders? No. If you believe that, that is like assuming Michael Firth's going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger going to the gym twice a week. It's never going to happen, right? I'm in the mid pace, right? So if that really makes sense and that a few aha moments have gone off from that one, please type it in the chat, because that's about motivating your people. How do you motivate your team? You stay ahead of their activity levels by doing more. You create 90-day runs where you bring the right people into that and infect them with positivity from all the others, okay? So that leads me to the second topic, and I saw you log in, Steve, but I'm not ready yet, but thank you. I'll get you lined up. I can see Steve. I'm going to make you a co-host ready. which is perfect timing. So the second topic that a lot of the leaders wanted us to talk about today was follow-up, okay, and follow through. Now, there's a statement you want to write down, and that is the fortune is in the follow-up. The fortune is in the follow-up. Because some people, again, if you look at what I said before in that quadruple sort, who's going to join, who's going to build, who's going to lead, who's a real effective leader who's laser focused on one company. When you're talking about follow-up, unfortunately, some of the people who are in between the first sort, there's Steve again, just logged in again. I'm going to join versus I'm going to lead. Sorry, I'm going to join versus I'm going to build. Some of those go out and speak to their first 10 best friends and they don't join, and that's why they end up quitting. But they thought they were going to thought they're going to join on the very first video or the second video or the third follow-up. But here's a statistic for you, and you want to write this one down. Most people, they say in the industry, need between 5 and 7 exposures before they make their decision. Now, I was one of these people. As soon as I spoke to Steve and he said, we're launching Neumi, I'm like, I'm in, let's go, right? Some people will join you like that. And if you are a beaver, detailed person, and you go, I needed to try the product first, everyone needs to try the product first. No, that's you and your mentality. Other people will join before using the product and do a big launch because they're business or opportunity focused. So don't mix it up with that as well. So with that in mind, follow up. What are some of the things you could do to follow up? Okay. So the key here is keeping your pinky in the door or your foot in the door in whatever way you can. So there's a technique that a lot of people have not spent time learning. And let me ask you this, if you're going to become a brain surgeon, would you just go, all right, I've done my training, get out my scalpels, let's go, right? I don't think so. You'll probably watch a mentor for a while and go, oh, okay, I wasn't thinking of doing that. I might have cut that one first instead of that one. Oh, God. So I'm glad I studied with a mentor first. Practice maybe on I'm sure they do it, on a cadaver, what do they call it, a dead body, and cut it up and before you go on a live brain. So when we're talking about learning skills in this industry, have you stopped and have you practiced out loud your approach invitation? Have you practiced out loud the second question that most people are forgetting? Do you want to know what it is? People think they're doing the Neumi 1, 2, 3 system when they say, hey, look, there's a great video that explains what you're talking about. You know, if I sent it to you, would you watch it? And they go, I've done the Neumi 1, 2, 3. We go, actually, you're doing the Neumi 1. The second step of number 2 is actually the most powerful, which is introducing them to a leader. And so you only do that if you ask this question. Once you've watched the video, have some questions. When's a good time to debrief? I was thinking this or this, which suits you best? Not, would you like to? You probably have some questions. Would you like to catch up? That's a yes, no. A yes, yes is, I was thinking this time. You'll have some questions. When's a good time? This one or this one? Which one suits you best? So optional, yes, yes. So what are some of the things you can do? Now, I know I've got Steve on. Let me just double check which one is the Steve. I had 2 Steves. There he is. I'm going to make you a co-host, Steve. Ready for this in just a minute. There you go. We are blessed to have our founder on today. And so before I get to that, though, it leads us to, as I said, the second topic of follow-up and what are some of the things you could do, okay? So the obvious things and the process everyone's using across the world is 2-minute video, first exposure, opportunity, overview, second exposure, unless you're just, you know, maybe a wellness practitioner focusing on just product. But that's what 99% of people do. 2-minute video, opportunity, overview, and then follow up. And that would be introducing them to someone upline. So if someone watched the 2-minute video, keen, watched the second video, keen, has a 3-way call, keen, and then doesn't join, you go, oh, well, it's dead in the water. No, 5 to 7 exposures. What are some of the things you could do? Well, let me share them with you. Steve Scott has a great recording right now, which is an 18-minute version of the glutathione deep dive. I use that as a follow-up with everybody because it's information that I don't need to be the medical practitioner, the doctor, the knowledgeable person on glutathione up the wazoo. If I do, I'll slow my growth down. Instead, I can say, oh, this cool video from our founder, Steve, and that'll answer all your questions. So that's another opportunity for a follow-up, right? What other things could you do? Short sports testimonials. This is where in the follow-up, people ask me, what would you send a sports star? What would you send a university student? What would you send a mum and dad? What would you send a corporate executive? Exactly the same. 2-minute video, opportunity overview, 3-way call. But in the follow-up, what would I send? Oh, now this can vary. Do they go to the gym? Bill Gillespie's video, right? Are they really super wellness focused? Well, there's all sorts of things. Dr. Crozier's deep dive, Steve Scott's deep dive. So it could be the compensation plan, because in the step 2, that's where you know what they need to hear next, because you've had the conversation. So you've gone through the follow-up steps of greeting, qualify, invitation in that call, which is building rapport, asking quality questions to understand what they need. And then third step is invitation to take the next steps. So based on what I hear, listening attentively, 2 ears, 1 mouth, that ratio, I find out what their needs, wants, and desires are in that call, and then I can direct them to the next thing. So it could be a compensation plan deep dive, the long version. It could be the 130-10 building philosophy to make sure they don't stack 3 legs and collapse later. It could be short sports testimonials. It could be a link to the Neumi New You interviews. There's so many of those out there. It could be getting them a product sample to try. It could be selling them a product, depending on what country you're in. If you're not an NFR market, you could do that per product purchase. It could be an introduction to another leader. It could be adding them to the Neumi New You Facebook group, because that's where all the heat is. It could be sending them an ingredient link to a PubMed article. If they're a friend and they're local, I'm in the Sunshine Coast and 99.9% of my groups around the world are not here, but if they were local, it could be a coffee catch up, just to, shoot the breeze and talk about different things. And you might ring into an upline at the time and introduce them on the phone, right? So there's a tool right now that came up, and the timing is impeccable, I got to say, because of this presentation timing. But Steve Scott and I have been friends for 17 years. And if you saw on my social media yesterday and on the Facebook page that I run, you'll notice that I said, amazing event happening. Steve Scott, multi-billion-dollar producer, sold over $4 billion in sales, as one of the most influential people on direct response television. He's been my mentor for 17 years. He's running a free event. It's not about Neumi. And if you're looking for any tips and hints on being a success, what do they say? If you want to be a millionaire, take one to lunch. If you want to sell billions, talk to someone who has. There's a great event. Steve Scott will be talking about his book and some of the content and things that happened in his life, success principles. Log in. So I've said to my entire group, go back to all your prospects that have already seen Neumi and say, hey, not about Neumi, but I think you'll get a lot out of this. Here's the details. If I sent you the link, would you log in? And that is first class way of, and I'm going to say, Steve, a Trojan horse, because I'm bringing Steve in to talk success principles, but I want them to be around the energy of Steve and the energy of the company. And with that in mind, Steve is on right now. So I'm just going to bring him on to share a few words.
Hi. Hello, everybody. It's so good to see everybody's face. I think we're going to start regular calls again. Nobody knows I'm saying this, but I miss everybody. And, one of the great joys of this company is the people we get to relate to. So tomorrow night's going to be my first call. It's not going to be on Neumi. It's not going to be on the science. So it's so you can invite people that seemingly don't have a lot of interest. Something happened that's really, really cool. And that's what I'm going to talk about just for a minute. My very first book, which was and it was a bestseller, thankfully, because there would be no second, third, fifth, sixth, 10th, 12th book had this one not been a success. But it was my first book. It came out in 1996. And it was called A Millionaire's Notebook: How Ordinary People Achieve Extraordinary Success. And it was pretty cool. I had great endorsements on it. I had Dick Clark, remember Dick Clark, American Bandstand, all of his shows. William F. Buckley, who was real well known. He had been on TV for years, but he was known for his publication and the novels he wrote. His publication was National Review. It had Zig Ziglar, it had Dennis Waitley, it had Frank Gifford. The publisher decided to put Zig Ziglar's endorsement on the front cover. There was an endorsement on the back cover. It came out in 1996, and the endorsement on the back cover that was the lead endorsement was really cool, and I wanted them to switch it. I wanted them to put Zig Ziglar on back and this other endorsement on the front. And the publishers, Simon & Schuster, said, well, no, we're going to keep Zig Ziglar. We're going to put him on the front because he's written many books, has millions of readers, millions of followers. There was no internet back then. This other guy that was on the back cover, yeah, he's had 2 books and has had maybe 500,000 readers, maybe 1 million. And so we're going to keep him. But I said, but I like this guy. And they said, no, we're going to keep him on the back cover. Well, this is my first book. So the author always loses in the first book to the publisher. After the first is a hit, the author has a lot more say in what goes on and what doesn't go on. And so now, after almost 30 years, it'll be 30 years next week, or not next week, next year, because it came out in 96, they made the switch. Zig Ziglar is on the back cover. And that's my new dog. She likes to bark at things outside, or when she sees her reflection in a door, a glass door or something, she likes to bark at the dog that she's looking at in the door. Anyway, so they made the switch. It's just come out, the new cover. And I'm excited because I'm going to get these at some point at a half price that we'll be able to offer it to people. We don't have the way to take orders for it right now, but literally half price. The retail price on it is $18, so we'll be able to get them out for $9 plus shipping. And but I'll read you what the front cover says. It's now on the front cover. I'll show you real quick. See that little one in blue right there? It says, Steve Scott's uncanny insights and strategies are so specific and easily applied, I believe they can empower any reader, whether a college student, small business owner, or the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, to achieve levels of success they haven't yet dreamed of, which was my favorite phrase, because most people think within a box, they dream within a box. And what changed my life was when the box was completely shattered. And I realized, looking back at this, that what shattered it were some strategies and skill sets I had learned. I ran into Steven Spielberg at a restaurant, and he came over and we started talking because we had gone to high school together and we'd both achieved all of our impossible dreams. This is right after he got his second check from ET for $98 million. And we started comparing notes, and we both did the exact same things, the same strategies, the same skill sets, but nobody had ever written a book on it. Then I went to my good friend Michael Landon, told him I'd seen Spielberg that night, and I told him that we talked for 45 minutes, and at the end Spielberg said, isn't it interesting, the things that really change your life aren't what you learn in school, they're what you learn from your mentors. And I said, yes, Steve, but how many people had mentors like you and me? Well, my friend Michael Landon said, well, what were some of the strategies? I started telling him, he goes, I did that, I did that, I did that. So I knew 3 people who had achieved their impossible dreams, and we all did it the same way. So I wrote a book, same strategies and skill sets, and it became a bestseller. But here's that endorsement I just read. At the name of it, it says, I'll give you a hint, 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. So now Donald Trump is on the front cover instead of the back cover. And, Phoebe and I, about a year or two before she joined my previous company, she saw me on Larry King Live on one of my books and ordered it. And it was while she was at work as a midwife in a hospital. She was on a break and saw it. And then literally a year or two later, somebody said, hey, this new company, here's the guy that's the founder. And is it the same guy that wrote that book? And they said, yes. Well, that book, Richest Man Who Ever Lives, now in about 50 languages. This book never made it that far. This is when people used to go to bookstores to buy books instead of the internet, and because there was no internet. And so what I'm going to do tomorrow night is I'm going to introduce this book. And I'm going to go through some of the strategies and skill sets that we talk about in the book. And a competitor of mine, our company, American Telecast, at the time I wrote this book, was doing about $200 million a year in sales. We had a competitor named Guthrie Rinker, which is two guys, Bill Guthrie and Greg Rinker. Hey, Nana, get down, get down. You're not supposed to taste mom's cooking when it's on the counter. Anyway, the Guthrie Rinker, they had been in business for about 10 years and had never done more than 60 million in a year. Well, Greg Rinker saw this. He went out and bought it, and it became the marketing manual for Guthrie Rinker. And the first year they used these strategies, which include communication and sales strategies, their sales went from 60 million to $450 million. Next year, using the same thing as their marketing manual, their sales went to 860 million, and the next year they broke $1 billion. Then Greg would talk about it at all the industry functions. I never went to them, but my partners did, and they were always come back mad. I can't believe Greg Rinker thanked you and your book for their big success. Way to go. And well, a guy named Carl Deichler heard Greg give a testimony, and his company had never done more than 15 million in a year. He went out and bought the book. Next year, he did $160 million. His company, Beachbody, went on to become $1 billion a year company as well. I didn't even know that until one day I was getting a tour of his place. Greg was, Carl Deichler was, we had met for some reason. He's giving me a tour of his facility, and he goes, all of this is because of you. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, your book. I heard Greg's testimony about it, so I went out and bought it. It did the same thing for us that it did for Guthrie Rinker. Well, it's not just meant for companies. There are some sections of it toward the end that are, will be more meaningful for companies. But these principles apply in every area of your life. Number one problem in business, communication. Number one problem in marriage, communication. Number one problem in parenting, communication. Solve the communication problem and all of life changes. Well, that's just one strategy that the book gets into. And so it's kind of a fun book. It's not as much of a teaching book as some of my other books, but it's fun. And it starts out on the back cover. The other thing on the back cover, it says, seeing a resume like this, how would you have rated Steve Scott's chances for making millions? And you can see the resume. That was right out of college. In 6 years, I went through 9 jobs, and you can see the outcome. Quit, failed, fired, quit, about to be fired. Quit, failed, fired, quit. And the average job length was 4 to 6 months. And you can see my starting salary was less than half of the average American household. People say, what can I do? The answer is it's not more education, usually. It's not more money. It's none of that. It's the strategies. Strategies are the way you approach an opportunity, a project, a problem. It's how you approach it. And so these are strategies that I learned from the book of Proverbs. I found 2 mentors, Bob Marsh and Gary Smalley, who mentored me in the skill sets to apply those strategies. And the rest is history. So that's what I'll be talking about tomorrow night. And if you want to get your friends on that call, there's no limit to how many people we can get. And on that call. So thank you. I'll go back to Michael now, and I can't wait to start seeing you guys weekly again. Lord bless you. And I have a prayer request for those of you that pray. One of our medical board members that I dearly loved, just an amazing man, 73 years old. He was president of the American Association of Emergency Room Physicians. He was triple board certified. What a gift to our company. He got pneumonia over the holidays and passed away on Sunday. So if you could pray for Mrs. Hayes, Jim Hayes. The good news is, for those of you that follow the Lord, Jim came to the Lord through the same ministry that I came to the Lord with back when he was in college. And he was 73, wonderful, wonderful man. But I only found out about it yesterday. So please be in prayer for Jim Hayes's family. Obviously, they're devastated. So thank you. God bless you. And I look forward to starting our calls again tomorrow night. We'll see you then. Michael?
Beautiful. Thank you, Steve. And so guys, you know, in our training, we talk about the Neumi 1, 2, 3 questions you guys have all been taught, which is, if I send a video, would you watch it? Once you watch it, look at the questions. When are you free to debrief? There's a third question you've probably seen in there, which is so relevant for this. All right. I mentioned, for want of a better word, Steve's call is a Trojan horse. You can bring all your past prospects into it. But hey, if you're a bit, funny about approaching someone right now and you just don't know how to do it, invite them to Steve's call. Get them a first exposure. Like, what's Neumi? They might ask after the call. So this third question that we've taught, which is relevant for a live event, is, hey, let's say it's Erin I'm looking at. Hey, Erin, how's your weekend? Yada, yada, yada. Listen, what are you doing tomorrow at 11 a.m. Queensland time? Or in your case, what are you doing tomorrow at 6 p.m. Mountain time? So you think of your local time zone for your prospect. And then shut up and wait for the response. Now, you could do this in text message, copy paste to about 30, 40, 50, 100 prospects you've had in the past and wait for the response. Nothing, why? Or I'm busy, why? I don't care what the answer is. If there's nothing, why? Say, oh my God, great opportunity. You're probably not aware. I'm partnered with Steve Scott, multi-billion-dollar producer who wrote all these books, and he's going to be covering off the success principles of this particular book. And so that's an opportunity to reach out again. Okay. And so it could be all your past prospects, every single person you've ever spoken to, even if they said no to Neumi, because you're not promoting Neumi, you're promoting helping them with some strategies. But if you're shy about certain individuals, it's a great way just to, dip your toe in the water and ask that question. So, hey, what are you doing at this time on this day? Now, you have 24 hours to pack it out because he's here at exactly, 23 hours. How many calls can you make, right? How many texts can you send? I'll challenge you. Steve said we can't, there's no limit. There is actually, there's 1,000. So if we blow the doors off 1,000, which we've never done, I would love to see it. Let's try. Who's up for it? Blowing 1,000, blowing the numbers. Type it in the chat if you want to blow the doors off. Now, there is two more bits of training on this before we wrap up. Okay. So have you ever heard this statement? Can you catch tennis balls? I had a guy once present on stage and he said, can you catch tennis balls? And everyone's like, yeah. And he goes, some up from the crowd, come up. And he got him up on the sting and he got a bucket of 50 tennis balls and threw it at them. And he's like, they're like all the balls on the ground. What are you doing? He said, you told me you could catch tennis balls. They said, well, I could if you sent them one at a time. This guy was intelligent. He used, like Steve did, stories to make a point or anecdotes. He said, okay, that's what happens when a network marketer sends multiple links to somebody. They're like, oh, too many, I can't catch the ball. So if you're a green beaver personality with details and you go, oh, they need this one and this one and this one and this one, you're killing your business by overloading them. They can catch one tennis ball at a time. You have a beautiful app that'll tell you when they've watched the first one. That's when you throw the second tennis ball. So what I'm getting at is don't send them Steve Scott's glutathione overview, Steve Scott's invitation to his event, Dr. Crozier's one. You're just drowning them. One tennis ball at a time. Once it's watched, send the next tennis ball. Big tip, that one, in terms of keeping your pinky in the door and follow through, which is what we're talking about. So as a final thing, who would like to avoid Weirdo World? Who wants to know what Weirdo World is? I know some of my guys do because we trained on it the other day. Weirdo World is the follow-up space you end up in when you don't book a meeting from a meeting where, and I've had some people in my team the other day say this happened to them, asked someone, hey, if I sent you a video, would you watch it? Yeah, send it out. Great. Followed back up. Have you watched it yet? No, I haven't had a chance yet. Okay, then go to an event, meet the person, and it's awkward now. I won't ask them because they're thinking that I'm thinking that we're thinking and everyone's thinking that we're thinking, right? And it's this weird energy. How did you get there? Because you didn't book a meeting from a meeting, right? Whereas if you just booked a meeting from a meeting saying, once you've watched it, you'll have some questions. When's a good time? Let's book it in now. I get busy, you get busy. Let's book it in. Then you don't have Weirdo World. Once you're in Weirdo World, how do you get out of Weirdo World, right? A lot of people end up in Weirdo World. It's simple. You just tell them you're in Weirdo World. You say, hey, Erin, You know how I sent you that video the other day and then you didn't get a chance to watch it, what have you? You know, we're beautiful friends, been friends for years, and we've ended up in this weird thing called Weirdo World, which means I don't know what you're thinking, whether you watched it, whether you haven't, and I don't want to push anybody. So let me ask a question. When do you think you'll get the chance to watch it? Let's book a time now for following up, because that way, you know, I won't chase you, you know, the energy's good and we're out of Weirdo World. So just state it. Point at the elephant in the room called Weirdo World and get out of Weirdo World and book a meeting from a meeting. So write this down, BAMFAM, BAMFAM, book a meeting from a meeting. That is one of the biggest skills you can learn. If you want to be really amazing in this industry, you don't need to be great on social media. You don't need to be an expert in glutathione. What you need to do is be really good at an invitation that you've practiced, which includes, if I sent a video, would you watch it? And when are you free to debrief? Booking a meeting from a meeting. If you master those two things, you're ahead of 99% of the network marketing industry, and you are on song with exactly what you needed to learn. So I said we're going to cover 5 things today, and we have covered off. Number 1, the corporate promotions. 8 days left to get your double rank promo. We talked about the pay quicker system, and now you know how to get your money across to that one. We talked about the 2 topics the Diamonds want us to talk about, which was how to motivate your team. Play it back if you just logged in. And we talked about follow-up techniques. And then we had Steve Scott on to talk about the greatest follow-up event you could have, which is tomorrow at this time. Final thing, the 5th thing I want to say, if you have a great testimonial, please go right now and type it into the Neumi New You Facebook group. If it gets rejected, it's because you included medical references, which we can't, but that'll teach you. You'll learn something from doing it. We need more testimonials in there. Please, please, please put your testimonials with a photograph of yourself and your testimonial in there. Number 2, if you're a leader and we're in that quadruple sort and you've gone from I'm joined to building, but you want to lead, why not put your hand up and say, I'd like to be an MC for one of the events. I'd like to introduce Steve, or I'd like to introduce Aaron, and we will bring you up. We'll teach you how to do it well, and we will manage the technology so you've got no stress, and you just have to do a cameo for 1 minute to say, hi, my name's Fred Nurk. Who's on today? Exciting. Hey, let me edify the speaker and introduce them. We want more people to step up as real leaders to become MCs. And finally, I want to thank all the presenters we've had step up since the first of the year. We've had brand new presenters, never presented before, for the first couple of months of the year, and we're looking for more. Do you want to be a presenter? Right? I saw just a second ago, Christine typed something in. She was first presentation she did for the company officially. It was a brilliant presentation. Phoebe does it. And I'm looking at people right now that are doing presentations, and they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart because they are servant leaders interested in the whole of Neumi profiting, not just their own team. So they're selfless leaders, and that's the energy of Neumi. And we would love to see new presenters, and we will teach you and mentor you how to do it so that you're not left on your own doing it either as well. So guys, that's a wrap. If you got a lot out of today's session, this recording is on YouTube, and you can share it with your teams, and it will be posted into the members group in a minute. And if there's something you learned today, I would love you to share in there what you learned in the chat underneath that in about 10 minutes from now when you see it, so that your members are encouraged to make sure they don't miss. And that's how you take people through the quadruple sort, from joining to building to leading to being a laser-focused leader with one company in mind. So I hope you got a lot out of it today, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We'll see you all tomorrow, same time with Steve. Let's blow the doors off it. It's not an opportunity you have every day. Get on the phone, send as many texts out as possible. What are you